Awaken Beauties, finally, it's here. The truth to empower women to true inner beauty through a healthy mind and inner biology. I am your hostess, Cassandra Keel, a 20-year salon owner, organic beauty product formulator, positive mind management, and clinical hypnotherapist. And I am here to help you stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back. Sponsored by evoquebeauty.com. evoquebeauty.com. Now, let's get to it. Alrighty, welcome to the Awaken Beauty podcast. This is a mini episode. Well, we'll figure out how mini this is once we get into the beef soup of today's mixture around procrastination. And you're going to want to stay till the end because I actually have 3 flavors of procrastination soup in this episode. Now, talking about procrastination in today's time together is going to be referenced towards those that especially struggle with executive function, which is the ability to hit that to-do list and get through all of them within the day or the week at that, to be able to plan, to organize in your mind and efficiently get through a full processes of a project from soup to nuts. So the other person that may especially benefit from today's episode is midlife women, men, or even children that suffer from the tendencies to be a little bit more on the ADD or ADHD side. Now, when I say suffer, it's because these tendencies tend to be a little bit more intense in our nervous system. So with that being said, I think everybody can relate to procrastination, but I wanted to call out those 2 personas, so to speak, for you to listen up because this is for you. Now, I'm going to start with a quote, which is from Ella Varner, and it's, "I'm a big believer in putting things off. In fact, I even put off procrastinating." So here's the deal, my friends. Everyone puts things off sometimes, but procrastinators chronically avoid doing something, knowing that they need to do. And even though they know it's a bad idea, they still do it anyways. And we go against our better judgment, despite knowing that our behavior is going to evolve into a negative consequence, whether immediately or down the road. But still, procrastination is essentially this irrational behavior that we tend to have a relationship with. So procrastination typically is defined as the tendency to delay those activities that have to be completed before a certain deadline. And most of us think that procrastination in large part reflects let's call it the perennial struggles with self-control and time management. Quote unquote, "I don't feel like it," takes precedence over our goals. So as we're learning, however, the procrastination is really a short term for our mood. It's to repair our mood in the moment. And the discomfort, the absolute discomfort we feel about a task is so visceral in our body. It's so strong that we naturally want to avoid our in the moment negative feelings. So we suppress it or we put it off. And it gives us that immediate relief. So essentially, we can feel rewarded for procrastinating. So listen to what I'm saying. The feeling, the dopamine hit for getting the relief of putting it off and not having to do it literally is a wiring in your brain and gives you that dopamine. So of course, we as humans also have the fantasy that there will be more time to do things later. So we consistently just put it out into the future, thinking into forever land, we'll have more time later. And we all have a tendency to prioritize oftentimes our short-term needs ahead of our long-term needs. And so we call this present bias, and it's a common cognitive distortion in any brains, but specifically for those with ADHD. And on a neural level, we perceive that our future self is more like a stranger. So that procrastination actually gives us the feeling that the task will be somebody else's problem down the road. Even though we're affinitizing it with ourselves, we don't really, we're not really attached to that relationship unless you know that I love attaching to our superconscious, unless you live in that superconscious sense. For me, I've been able to now train my mind, my neural imaging in my mind of how does that put that future self that I already know that she's becoming, how does that put her off? So that's just something I wanted to slide in there. So, really involves some degree of self-deception. And procrastinators typically contend that they perform better under pressure for a reason, going back to that dopamine hit. But research also shows that it is not the case for the general population. And more often than not, my friends, it is just their way of justifying putting things off. So on some level, a procrastinator is aware that they're putting things off today and is going to result in potentially more pain later. Risk reward. So a quick tip here is I've actually started to create the inhibition of being able to pause and say, okay, if I don't do this now, what pain am I going to pay off later? Or maybe I want to buy a course. If I do the short term to wanting to take this course now, do I have the time in my schedule to do this, to actually soak it and actually benefit and be able to serve it on a platter to my clients so that they can get the results in their life? And so it's that inhibition to be able to create that moment of pause and that self-deception, really. So the next thing I want to talk about it, and going back to that cost benefit analysis, is that procrastination costs more than just our productivity. And to be honest with you, there's really, really big costs resulting from procrastination. And it is internally troubling, and it can lead to problems. Listen up, my ladies. Insomnia, our immune system breaking down. And if we understand stress, how it impacts our gastro system. So it puts us in this state of high inflammation, chronic stress. It evolves into low life satisfaction and poor health. Even in our business, our business is a trauma-informed experience because we never really drop our bags at the door, and we bring our experience from past trauma, big T and little t, into our business, into how we create our family ecosystem. So chronic stress can really lead into these comorbidities, or let's just call it depression, anxiety, even hypertension and cardiovascular disease. It makes sense, right? We are energy, and our heart chakra is energy. And when we're in pain, our heart chakra and our cardiovascular system is going to see the repercussions. So procrastination can also erode personal relationships, our job performance inside the workplace. And overall, procrastinating has pretty destructive effects, let's just be honest, on our mental and our physical health and well-being. And it just spills over into all aspects of our life. So as a nerdy nerd, I want to jump into a little bit of some interesting procrastination research. Now, results demonstrated that procrastination positively correlated with sleep disturbance, a link moderated by our chronotype, such as self-identified morning types reported lower with procrastination and fewer sleep disturbances. And among the intermediate and evening types, the relationship between procrastination and sleep was mediated by rumination and negative mood. And so these findings suggest that addressing the impact of sleep should be one of the targets of his interventions in our life for treating actually procrastination. So it's kind of a flip on this piece of nurture and nature in our chronotype. And we already know that with ADHD individuals, we tend to have a delay response in our basically our melatonin is delayed, and so we tend to stay up later at night. So if we treat our sleep, we can actually treat the procrastination in a beautiful way. Now, let's hop out of procrastination and let's get into procrastinating. So, as you might imagine, there's a great deal of research from many different angles on procrastination. And crazily enough, there is also research about the opposite of procrastination, which we call precrastination. And it's really interesting because research defines this as the tendency to complete or at least begin tasks really quickly just for the sake of getting it done. Right. So I'm sure you can imagine your kid just doing it really quick so they can get it done. Or when you were in school, you did your homework just to be finished with it. My gosh, it pulls into all aspects of our life, even if it costs us in the long run. So I really, really love that they researched and actually coined this term as precrastination. And I'm so guilty of it because I just want to get things done, especially when you've procrastinated for so long. Get this. Now you're going to start to precrastinate because you just want to get shit done because you've fallen into this pattern of procrastination. So what does it look like? It looks like going after the low-hanging fruit, right? It's close at hand. Let's just get it done. It could look like immediate payoffs that you get from completing something and feeling the reward, right? That dopamine of that in itself. Or you start because you're really eager to show that you're worthy of the responsibility. And so you just start doing it, right? You budge and maybe in your work or in a group dynamic, you just start doing it because you want to be the first one to start it, right? You want to be seen. And it's really easy to start with these tasks because you just want to get it done quickly. So the research really thinks that precrastinators who do things immediately are doing them just for the sake that they don't want to have the task later in their mind, or that they can feel the relief from that working memory capacity to just get it done. Right. So this research really claims that this precrastination is really perversion of diligence. And the dark side of it is that it really starts to hamper on our productivity, both short and long term. And so this anxiety about making progress just causes us to just want to just dive in head first, right? Whether it's impulsivity and buying something or into a project. And, it really puts a burden on, think about it. Think about your colleagues, your family members, the fires that we have to clean up in the long run, or somebody else has to clean up. I mean, I remember when I was a part of a political campaign, and there was a lot of writing, a lot of fact checking, a lot of auditing, just the different copywriting. And I remember I was so jazzed up, and I would get really, really good feedback on where things were going. And then a lot of the times people would have to go clean it up because I was so excited and I just wanted to get it done. And so that precrastination really cost the whole campaign to have to make sure that we're double checking and third checking, right? If that's even a word. So another part of this last part of precrastination is something that I find women do often. And, you could be called a type A kind of person if you have these really, really long to-do lists. But what research found from her name is Lisa Foreigner, it's a 2018 study, is that the longer a person's to-do list is, the likelier the person is to procrastinate, right? So they get the easy, quick things out of the way first, right? Eat the frog first in the morning, but may never get to the most important tasks. That's why it's something I so believe in with any entrepreneurs that I work with, that we really measure their most dominant energy and frequency so that we can understand where to proportion their energy, and making sure that we get the sand, the pebbles, and the big rocks taken care of. And so that's just really important. They did a lot of research around that, and really interesting findings that when we quickly take care of all the little immediate things that pop in our day, instead of working on the most important priorities, we procrastinate. And oftentimes it's due to boredom. It can be impulsivity, just that anxiety, maybe unresolved trauma, that especially as ADDers, they fall into that trap of procrastination. It's the another side of procrastination that we don't really think about, but it's really costing us from reaching our end goals, our desires in life. So there's all different dynamics here, but I really wanted to kind of pull in that ADHD and procrastination research, because it is so important to understand that this has been really well thought through, and that procrastination is not officially acknowledged as necessarily an ADHD related trait, but it is one of the most common challenges that men, women, and children come to get when we step into owning our ADHD. And oftentimes, you go and get a coach, and I often hear that I procrastinate all the time. Well, when we reframe that self-talk, it's so important to help others and for ourselves to realize that it's not going to be resolved overnight, but it can't take away some of that unnecessary shame and pain when we start to reframe what we're actually doing. Because what's actually true is that they may put things off and they don't know why. They don't understand that their ADHD brain wiring might be a part of the issue. So that reframe of our self-talk of I always procrastinate may be just because you have maladaptive coping strategy around this vicious cycle of wanting to get things done, or not being able to see the visceral connection to that future goal being accomplished, that you're willing to do the small task, but be able to look at your energy and plan it efficiently. So I promised you, coming to an end, 3 different flavors of procrastination. And again, going back to research, I found this so interesting. There was a small study in 2006 that explored the procrastination rates among adults with and without ADHD. So this is so good. They defined procrastination as a needless delay of relevant and timely task, and called it complex phenomenon involving more than a difficulty with time management. So the 3 research identified these 3 different flavors. You can call it vanilla, chocolate, or twist, right? Of procrastination in adults with ADHD. So here's the 3 different flavors. The first one is vanilla. Let's call them arousal types. Well, this is good. Actually, this is a really good working memory exercise. So to remember arousal, think of vanilla. And these are the thrill seekers. They have behavior delays to seek that thrill experience under time pressure. And they want to experience that adrenaline or that rush from beating the clock. Then you have the chocolates, the avoidant types. They have a behavior delays motivated to protect their self-esteem, or let's just call it their self-image. So they put off tasks for a variety of reasons, sometimes in order not to reveal perceived character flaws, such as the lack of ability or fear of failure, or even the fear of success. So again, vanilla arousal, they're thrill seekers. Chocolate avoidance, they avoid things for the lack of wanting to not be seen as a failure or even fear success. And then you've got the twist vanilla cone, and those are the decisional procrastinators. And they're unable to make a decision, right? So they're always in that delayed response. And though they are very concerned with what others think of them, the cognitive ability forms into procrastination. So it's that analysis by paralysis of being judged. So you've got the arousal, the avoidance, and the decisional. And ADHDers or ADDers, please listen up, my friends. You are so lucky. You're one big sugar addiction because we use all three of the flavors to our ice cream. So let that soak in for a second while I take a sip. Or I should say a lick of the ice cream cone. So it's so interesting here in these three flavors that the research found that ADHD adults actually claimed they were more often indecisive, right? So this brings in that twist cone, the decisional procrastination, and engage in task delays that may reflect poor performance ability for the thrill of seeking that dopamine hit, which is the vanilla, the arousal procrastination. And the avoidance of tasks, bring in the chocolate, avoidance procrastination. So we can see how all three of these come together on delaying the response and then making a poor performance ability just to have the thrill of seeking that motivation, which brings the arousal of that dopamine. And then it can kind of sift out, and then you just start to avoid what you procrastinate. So it's a cyclic event that happens in all three of these different pieces. So I just thought this was really, really, really interesting on how this all ties together and how they can play out in your everyday life. Now, since we've gone through procrastination, we're now going to go into procrastivity. So we've got the procrastination, and we're going to go a little bit more into the procrastivity on one last piece here. And my friend, beautiful researcher, I wish he was my really close friend. I just love this man so much, Dr. Russell Ramsey. You know, him and some colleagues studied procrastination from a cognitive behavioral perspective. So when they coined procrastivity, they were really defining it as avoiding the higher priority. And again, going back to always going after the lower priority, less time urgent, but actually very productive endeavors that ultimately always end up in self-defeating. So I just really want to kind of bring this back that procrastination is really a task that may actually require more time and effort, but is viewed as more in harmony with one perceived efficacy than the priority task. So we're really not sure if this is just another instance of researchers giving the same thing names or not, but we actually recognize that this procrastivity as a better description of what we see ADHDers do based on this dopamine response. And so it's just, again, this cyclic response. When we apply it to the ADD or ADHD mind and how our neural pathways, our neurochemistry is wired. So, for myself, for me, I really see procrastination as not being able to start what is not interesting and not fun, and also not wanting to stop what is interesting and fun. And this goes back to ADHD or sometimes executive function being a interest-based nervous system. It's in our wiring. It goes back to the hunter and the farmer. We are huntress and hunters, that we have that primitive brain, that it is very much, what are we focusing on? What do we have to kill in order to survive? So, sometimes ADHDers or ADDs, they're just waiting for focus or clarity around a project or fun, right? Or for an unexamined time point where they can create that interest to be involved in that project and to fulfill its goals. So, others may feel the need to do task steps in order, but can't do the first step to get unstuck. Or other times, creative ADHDers may not even recognize that they are percolating on an idea or a project for weeks. And there's still other situations of procrastination where the goal may not be in line, even with the values or the passion or their skill sets or their vision. And so that procrastination never really aligns because it's not even aligned with their inner nature, their energetic self of their core truth. And they can just never get started. And so we certainly know that time issues and executive function challenges do come into play when we are procrastinating. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of flavors of ADHD procrastination. And so I'm going to end with maybe just, I usually call her Negative Nelly, but honestly, I think any part-time selves or any parts of us that tend to pop out are really things just protecting us. But we can also give them names so that we can start to identify them when they pop up in our life. So they all start with P's. So here's another working memory. And I hope you'll affinitize with these, and this is where we'll end. So first, I'm going to start with perfectionist Pam. So listen up. I must have the perfect plan so I won't fail. And if I can't do it perfectly, then I won't do it at all. So fear of failure and a standard of perfection paralyzes you. So wants to hit that very awesome, that home run every time that he or she steps up to the plate. But she may get lost in planning forever, trying to create a perfect plan, which does not even exist on this planet Earth. So Pam can't bear to make a mistake and risk being criticized. Next, we move into pressure Pete. Now, he puts off beginning a project while waiting for the deadline to draw near enough to become that adrenaline junkie that he needs to focus. He may enjoy the adrenaline rush or the thrill of working under pressure, and may even believe that he does his best work under pressure. Or the pressure can be so great that Pete will do it to be this dreaded yard work for the first time just to avoid starting. And he may say to himself that he could even get it done better if he had more time or just started earlier. So Pete likes to be under pressure. And then you have postponer Peggy, and she says to herself, oh, there's plenty of time. There's no need to start yet. She's often time challenged in a variety of ways, such as underestimating how long the project will take, not recognizing how quickly the deadline is coming up, or just thinking there will be more time later. So Peggy may keep researching long enough when she needs to just move on. And then we have passionate Patrick. Now, Patrick becomes so excited about an idea or concept and tells everybody how great it is. However, he ends up spending all this time daydreaming about defending the idea rather than making a damn plan and start taking action. And then you've got problem proliferator Penny, and she finds fault with everything that is not her idea, but eventually she'll get faulted for her idea as well. She's looking for problems rather than possibilities, my friend. Penny does not want to take unnecessary risks as she worries about what might go wrong. What if, to the point that she never even gets started. And then you got prioritizer Phil. He takes on too much and can't make a decision because everything feels equally important. He often can't say no to others' demands. So he just ends up working and doing longer hours and for others and for their friends, and he never gets to his own work. And so sometimes Phil is so busy that he doesn't even take time to set deadlines and priorities for himself or his well-being. And then pessimistic Pearl. She feels so overwhelmed, so anxious by what she wants to do. It just feels too big for her. So she visualizes failing and therefore can't even begin. And Pearl doesn't even realize that she's planning to fail. And then you have puzzled Paul. When I figured out all the puzzles of the puzzle pieces and the pieces to the puzzle and all the people, then I will do what I need to do to get the job done. But Paul is waiting to see the whole picture in the puzzle before he can ever start. 3 more, my friends, because then you got picture Polly, and I see an entire picture of what the end should look like. And I can even conceptualize how it all fits together. And what I don't know how to break the project pieces into pieces and get the pieces into logical order, picture Polly knows she can't do her project all at once, but she's waiting to find that first step so she can confidently do what she sees in the big picture. And then you have potential Percy. And this project has so much potential. If only we could get the right amount of money or the right people. Percy talks about the good game, the big game, but it is always finding escape from finding fault. He will talk a great enthusiastic game until action has to occur. Then he runs away from the avoidance of the task. And last but not least, you have pretender Patty. And she fakes others out, including herself, by making them believe that she has been successful in similar types of projects before, but she's just talking to feel better until she actually has to do the work. So, my friends, regardless of exactly what brand of procrastinator you are as a person or what flavor you are, it is possible to reduce procrastination with effort, mindfulness, and awareness. And however, I do want to say this, when an ADHD child appears to be doing this, it's going to be an uphill battle to get that child to do homework when he doesn't see any value that would be worth the effort he would have to expend. So from adult to child, how we can really look at this is in a strength-based context. If you're a big thinker, you're great at doing fun things first, right? But the neuroscience says the delayed response, preparation time, and difficulty getting started due to late cognitive control and maturity is to be the cross-checked. Or maybe you're a great sprinter, right? So maybe you should be the leader of the team, allowing yourself to sprint ahead and allow everybody to come back into flow behind you. Or maybe you live in intuitive flow rather than constrained by structured of time. You'd be really great entrepreneur, but you have to remove the roadblocks that intend on taking action and make sure that you have the facilitation of faculty around you to be able to finish things. So there's all different pieces here around procrastination. from checklists that are too long to jumping in to want to get the dopamine hit. But, I hope that you remembered, which P you are in those procrastinators and identities. And even the chocolate, vanilla, and the twist of the arousal type, the avoidance or the decisional procrastinator, so that you can start to identify ADHD or not, if you procrastinate or precrastinate, and know that it has all been studied and validated, but it does dial down into how does it affect our health, our sleep, our immune system, and the relationships in our life. And how can we love ourselves and allow those tendencies to love us back, be able to be responsive in a way of reflection and seeing that come in through these different personalities and types and flavors, and just start to think more long term and bring the appropriate action and support that we need to help us. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I truly, truly hope that you did. And I'll leave you with another quote, my friends. And before I do, if you need any help in understanding your energy type and your sensitivities around your procrastination, please do reach out to me. I would love to help you. So with that said, here is the last quote, and it is from Margaret Mitchell, and it says, "I can't think about that right now. If I do, I'll go crazy. I'll think about that tomorrow." So with that said, my friends, all of my love, all of my light. Thank you for joining me on this pro and precrastination short episode. I hope it was helpful to you. Please let me know your thoughts in the show notes or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Until next time, stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back. Well, hello, Awaken Beauty. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Were you inspired? Please leave a comment or your own personal aha moment so others can capture exactly what you did. Also, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're interested in high quality natural products for your hair, skin, and wellness, including organic CBD, please visit evoquebeauty.com. Again, that is evoquebeauty.com, evoquebeauty.com. And until next time, darling, stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back.